Welcome back to the Deep Dives, where we tear through your reading stack so you don't have to.
Today, we have a really fascinating look at the Made in Italy brand.
We do. And we're looking past, the usual glossy cliches. We've got a set of sources that paints this picture of, well, intense innovation.
And economic shifts, surprising growth areas. It's everything from bio-based packaging all the way to, yes, high-tech agriculture.
And Ferraris, of course.
Can't forget the Ferraris. But really, the mission for you, our listener, is crucial today. We're not just going to be rattling off statistics.
Right.
We need to synthesize how these very different sectors, you've got design, agri-food, logistics, how they're all pivoting toward the future.
So it's about where the growth is forecast to be in the next, say, 3 to 5 years.
Exactly. And how Italy is actually leveraging digital strategies and, genuine applied sustainability to get there.
Okay, so let's start with a global powerhouse.
Yeah.
Italian design. It's a fact that kind of gets lost sometimes.
Yeah.
But Italy leads the entire EU in design revenue.
It's incredible. They account for nearly a fifth of the EU total.
19.8%, pulling in 6.3 billion euros and employing almost 1 in 5 people in the whole European design sector.
That's structural dominance.
It is. So let's unpack this. Where does that strength come from?
Well, it comes from deep specialization and this intense geographic concentration. It's a classic Italian economic model, really.
And when you drill down into the data, you see the magnetic pull of Milan, right? It's the
Well,
epicenter.
absolutely. The Lombardy region alone absorbs almost a third of the entire national added value from design.
Wow.
We're talking 1.1 billion euros.
Yeah.
And it's still growing at 7%.
Right.
And Milan itself, home of the Salone del Mobile.
The world's biggest design event?
Right. It accounts for 18.6% of that national value. It's just where all the capital, the talent, and the tradition collide.
But what I found really interesting is that this growth isn't only in the major hubs. The activity is spreading. It's accelerating in some less expected places. Our sources pinpointed the highest growth regions compared to, say, pre-COVID levels in 2019. Marche saw this phenomenal growth, up over 11%.
11.2, yeah. And then you have Friuli, Venezia Giulia, and Molise right behind, both over 10%.
It just proves the creativity isn't contained by the biggest cities anymore.
And that kind of distributed growth is really enabled by technology. And this is where it gets, for me, really interesting.
Okay.
80% of Italian design operators across the whole country are using artificial intelligence tools.
Wait, 80%? That seems incredibly high. That would put Italy far ahead of many other sectors globally.
It's a huge number.
So how are they using it? And who's driving it? Is it the designers or the businesses?
That is the critical insight here, because there's this fascinating tension in the data. While almost 89% of the businesses are using AI tools,
Okay.
only about 53% of the designers themselves are.
Wow, that's a huge gap. So the executives are all in saying we need to be efficient, but the individual creatives are maybe resisting a little.
Exactly. It suggests that the business leadership is aggressively adopting AI for, optimization, streamlining workflows, logistics.
And the designers are being a bit more selective about which tools they let into their creative process.
Precisely. The long-term implication here is a structural change in the designer's role. They might shift from being the sole creator to being more of a curator of AI-generated ideas.
And this focus on design and efficiency is clearly spilling over into new fields. We saw the medical and pharmaceutical industries are commissioning more and more design services.
Yeah, it's at 9.4% of services now, and it's expected to climb to almost 10%.
And when design enters healthcare, it's not just about making things look nice.
No, not at all. It's about applied ergonomics. It's patient well-being, intuitive interfaces for machines, even designing hospital layouts to reduce stress. It's human-centered design, but to save lives.
And speaking of impact, let's talk packaging. The sources showed that a third of the companies surveyed are heavily involved in packaging design.
Which is the ultimate sustainability frontier right now. Paper and paper-based materials are dominant, of course.
83.2%, I think.
That's it. But the future is pointing toward bio-based polymers. And to be clear for you, these are basically plastics, but they're derived from plant inputs like corn or sugarcane.
So they're renewable. And the numbers for that shift are pretty significant.
They are. The use of these bio-based materials is set to more than double in the next 3 years. It's going to rise from about 17.8% today to 38.3%.
That requires a massive R&D investment, which brings us to a perfect example of this.
La lavasa tabuli.
Exactly. This revolutionary 100% made in Italy product that was just unveiled.
It's the ultimate expression of this idea, a single-serve coffee tablet made entirely from coffee.
So it completely eliminates the plastic or aluminum capsules.
Completely. And it took 5 years of R&D, more than 15 patents to get it right. It's an efficiency and a sustainability play all in one.
Now, you contrast that high-tech, forward-looking product with the other big design story we saw,
The Ferrari 12-cylinder.
winning the Car Design Award for 2025.
And that award just perfectly encapsulates the Italian skill of merging tradition with, cutting-edge science. The jurors said it all.
What was their take?
They said Ferrari managed to blend the historic essence of their classic V12s from the 50s and 60s, but integrated it seamlessly with modern aerodynamics.
So history provides the elegance, technology delivers the performance.
That's it.
And that whole concept, hyper-efficiency, driven by R&D and a national digital strategy, like that 89% AI adoption we mentioned, that's the perfect lens to bring to the agri-food sector.
It's a great transition because agri-food is just the foundation of the Italian economy. The scale is massive.
Italy ranks first in the EU for agricultural added value, right?
42.4 billion euros. And the whole supply chain, from the farm to your plate, now accounts for a phenomenal 19% of Italy's GDP.
Which is a surge of almost 70% in the last decade alone.
It's huge.
So how is this, very traditional sector adapting to all this digitalization and sustainability pressure?
Well, about 67% of Italians overall recognize the concrete contribution that digital tech makes to the sector's growth, but we see a really fascinating generational split in behavior.
Tell us about that split.
Okay, so Gen Z at 48% and millennials at 33% are the most active digital users when it comes to sustainability.
So they're using apps and tools to track eco-friendly products, that sort of thing.
Exactly. They're translating their digital fluency into sustainable action.
But the older generations, they still see the value of the tech, even if they aren't the main users for that purpose.
Precisely. And here's the unexpected part. When you ask if they recognize tech's contribution to overall growth, baby boomers and Gen Z are tied, both at 71%.
So the older generation sees the economic necessity, and the younger generation is leveraging it for consumer choice.
You got it.
Now, for a great example of this kind of micro-niche growth, let's talk about the blueberry boom.
It's a huge success story. Italy's blueberry acreage has just exploded, up 172% since 2015.
And production has tripled.
Tripled to 12,000 metric tons this year. And the key advantage they have is their geography. They can harvest from the south all the way to the north, which gives them this extended harvest window.
But even with that huge production surge, domestic demand is so strong that Italy still imports more blueberries than it produces.
15,000 metric tons this year. It's wild. And their export share has actually dropped, which just shows that the local appetite is winning out.
And if we want to talk about tradition finding modern channels, we have to look at the monks of Norcia's beer.
Birra Nursia, this is such a unique story. It's medieval tradition being supported by, modern global beer snobs on an app.
On Untapped, they're basically masters of their digital footprint. They won gold, silver, and bronze at the Community Awards.
Which is global validation from the people who care most. And it really confirms the maturity of the whole Italian craft beer movement. But for the monks, the revenue supports their community.
It's the perfect blend of a high-quality local product succeeding through a modern digital channel. So if agri-food is digitizing and consumption is strong, what does that look like in the broader e-commerce landscape?
We're looking at robust, continued growth. Online sales are expected to grow another 6% in 2025, surpassing 62 billion euros.
And the fastest-growing sectors?
Both around 7% growth are food and grocery, which connects right back to that agri-food shift, and beauty and pharma.
The data on consumer behavior was really insightful. We're talking about 35 million digital consumers, and they are not buying on impulse. They check, 4 different sources before they buy?
Yes. The average is 2 sources from the brand and 2 independent ones like reviews. And crucially, social media is guiding about 1 in 4 purchases.
But here's the paradox. Despite all this domestic digital acceleration,
54% of Italian e-commerce companies still show a really low level of internationalization.
And that leads us perfectly to the final, maybe the most strategic challenge of this whole deep dive.
Unlocking Italy's untapped export potential.
This is one of the biggest opportunities for the whole national economy. We're talking about a reserve of about 17,000 businesses with the potential to export.
But they haven't realized it yet. Activating that group could boost total export revenue by 2.6 to 3%.
Which is substantial considering the country's already performing well. Goods exports grew 30% over the last 5 years.
Hitting 623.5 billion euros, plus another 141 billion in services.
But the friction is high. Over half of goods exports are within the EU. But there are still these internal barriers.
We call them tariff equivalent costs. They aren't actual tariffs, but it's all the paperwork, the different national standards, the logistical headaches.
And those costs add up. 40% for goods and a massive 110% for services, even within the EU.
Right. So given that friction, you can see why going after a market like the U.S. might seem like a rational short-term strategy for a smaller company.
Even if it carries that concentration risk.
That's the core tension. It is rational in the short term, which is why we need to categorize these 17,000 firms. First, you have the aspiring exporters.
These are the smallest players.
Tiny. 97.5% are micro-enterprises, under 10 employees, mostly in manufacturing. Their main hurdle is just limited resources, financial, and managerial.
Then you have the emerging exporters. That's the bigger group, over 11,000 firms. And this is where that U.S. concentration risk really becomes clear.
Precisely. 1,600 of these firms export to the U.S., and for 2 out of 3 of them, the U.S. is their only foreign market.
That's a huge vulnerability.
It is. It means almost 16% of their export revenue is entirely U.S.-based. If trade relations shift or a new tariff hits, that revenue is in serious trouble.
So support for them has to be about diversification. And just like with the design sector, this export potential is heavily skewed by geography.
Oh, heavily. Northern Italy is home to nearly 60% of these companies. Lombardy dominates again, with a quarter of the total.
It just proves that the engine of the made-in-Italy economy is still highly regionalized.
And that targeted support in those northern regions will have the fastest, most substantial impact.
So, to synthesize everything we've looked at, Italian leadership in design is strong, but it's diversifying into high-value sectors like healthcare. Agri-food is hitting record value, pushed by digital strategy.
And the big challenge now is activating all that export potential in these smaller, concentrated firms, while also managing the risk of being too dependent on the U.S. market.
Right. And if you connect all the dots, the high AI adoption, the push for eco-design and packaging, the digital focus in agri-food, it all signals one key transition.
Italy is moving toward applied efficiency and sustainability in its manufacturing. It's not just about making beautiful things anymore.
It's about making them consistently, efficiently, and with a minimal footprint.
That's the modern blueprint for Made in Italy.
So we'll leave you, our listener, with one final thought. Given that 1,600 of Italy's emerging exporters rely exclusively on the U.S., and internal EU trade still carries those high tariff equivalent costs.
40% for goods.
What is the greater strategic priority for growth? Is it greater geographic diversification outside the U.S., or is it deeper cost-reducing economic integration within the existing EU market?
Both are essential, but one might unlock stability or efficiency faster than the other. Thank you for diving deep with us.
We'll see you next time.